Well, few people have reshaped how we think about nature and business like our guest today. He helped map the first global plan to reverse warming with Drawdown. He reframed carbon as a thread of life and shows the path forward in Regeneration, his new carbon, the book of life. He co-founded pioneers like One and Smith and Hawken and chronicled a million grassroots movement in blessed unrest. He's been a mentor to millions, combining uncompromising realism with contagious possibility. I'm very excited and honored to welcome today Paul Hawken to the Positive Leadership Podcast. A warm welcome, Paul.
Jean-Philippe, I feel the welcome and I really thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate that.
So, Paul, in every Positive Leadership episode, I've learned that behind everyone actually there's a story. And when I spoke with Anna Ritchie, I don't know if you know Hannah, she's a data scientist, and I'm sure you heard about her. Maybe you're reading some of her stories as well. She's a deputy editor of Our World in Data and one of the leading voices in climate environment. She told me that her sense of agency came from discovering how facts could change everyday choices. And John Elkington, another friend, I think, of you, which I had the pleasure as well to host on the podcast, a pioneer of corporate sustainability and the originator of the triple bottom line, obviously, trace his radicalism back to the schools of the 60s in London. With you, I like to begin the same way, talking about the early landscapes and the people that shape your past. So, Paul, which landscapes and people or family experiences as well must awaken your sense that business and nature should more belong together?
Oh, what a great, I don't get that question very That's a good question. I have to almost think about that. I do say, and the other books I've written, by the way, are The Ecology of Commerce
Yeah.
and Natural Capitalism. So I've written about business and the environment, and started there really, actually, and from my early days. I think that one of the things that might surprise people is that I grew up in a household that was not safe. And so if it's not safe inside, I went outside. And I spent a lot of time outside, and I felt safe outside. And that's always been true. I never felt like nature was threatening or I would be harmed or something like that. It was the other way around. And so I think that is like a kind of a leitmotif that has been in my life since that time.
So do you mean that nature has been like a natural shelter for you in your early days to escape maybe some challenges at home?
Challenges is a kind word.
Okay.
I would say it wasn't an escape. It was an environment in which it was fascinating. I felt safe. Like I said, nothing was going to harm me.
Yes.
But also, I felt that what's interesting about when you're a child and you're in a house, you can pretty much name everything by the time you're 4 years old, you know. And when you go outside, you could spend 3 lifetimes trying to figure out what you're seeing and what are the names of things and so forth. So that develops a different appreciation of knowing, if you will, than the relative identifications that are affordable or available to you when you're inside, And so I think it creates, again, that curiosity and also the sense of awe, And I think I would disagree with Hannah Ritchie. Facts don't change people's minds. The stories tell them.
Stories tell them.
If facts change people's minds, we'd be in a much better world today. And it's not that I don't disagree with her facts and how she generates them and communicates so beautifully, but I'm just saying, if facts change people's lives,
not sure about that, unfortunately. Yes. So is there any story again of your early age as you were discovering nature, as you said, on your own, of encounters of people, connections of others, of events that truly drove your curiosity with that nature and that world?
I think that the one person I met when I was little in Yosemite National Park was David Brower. He wasn't the founder of the Sierra Club. John Muir was, but David Brower took the Sierra Club from a small NGO, environmental NGO, to prominence all over the United States, even worldwide. And he was an extraordinary man, and we were friends until the day before he died. And so his courage and his, I would say, just unceasing,
Yes.
unstoppable effort, to prevent more damage and to try to restore. I mean, if it wasn't for David Brower, the Grand Canyon would be dammed.
Huh.
So he did many other things as well. And so for me, he was like who I looked up to, and I'll never live up to him at all. But you always want someone that you can look to for guidance, in a sense, like a pivot, a sense of measuring your own activity in terms of integrity, in terms of purpose. We're only here a short time.
Yes.
And so the question is, who are we going to be, and what are we
Yes.
going to do?
Yes.
And so he very much helped me on that one. I would say he was a major influence. Then there was a scholar named Paul Goodman, and our student said, where I went to university, the students hired him, and he was definitely a radical. To say left wing is sort of weird. It was just because he wasn't left wing. I guess he was, but his thing wasn't politics. It was really about how we saw the world, and his famous book was Growing Up Absurd, and he simply pointed out how absurd our social and political institutions were. And and he was saying, we take old people and we put them into rest homes, and then we put children into these big classrooms and hire teachers, when actually they need each other. Why don't we put them together? And the older people come to life, and feel helpful and feel like they're doing something that has importance, instead of being marginalized. And the children get a lot more attention, and maybe some wisdom too. And so it was that kind of thing where he was looking at our social structures and seeing, the balkanization, that is, we're dividing everything up and getting specialists and having to go to school to be a specialist and so forth. And he's saying, yeah, but what have we lost? We've lost the fabric of society. And that fabric was more prevalent when towns were smaller and there was communities, or there was more dependency on each other. We could, but now
it's lost.
we go buy something now, and if you look carefully, it comes from China.
Yes. No, I think you're so right, Paul, in terms of losing a deep sense of community across the world, wherever you live. I think in most places of the world, and I think it's something I believe in strongly, is the power of communities, of meaningful communities. Building on our discussion, one of my recent past guests on a podcast is a professor of leadership at INSEAD, who used to be a psychiatrist, actually. His name is Gianpietro Pettighieri, and we talked even about leadership as kind of love. It was a very interesting discussion. And he often says that our leadership voice is forged as much in rupture as in nurture. So did you yourself experience wake-up calls early again in life or later in life, moments when some cracks appeared in the dominant story, as you talk about the storytelling? And if you can share those moments.
I mean, one was very personal, which is that I was the youngest recorded case of asthma where I was born, San Mateo. And so that was from 6 months old. And I had asthma all my life. And I nearly died a few times and turned purple and all that stuff. Okay. So when I was, just when I turned 18, I read a book and it said, if you're sick, it's your fault. I was like, what do you mean? I was 6 months old, I was like, it made me mad. But like, you know. But basically, what it also said is that only you, it's your responsibility. In
Yes.
other words,
Yes.
yeah, that was a really important thing. And I thought, okay, and I had been dependent on the medical system all that time, you know, and I was taking aminophenoephedrine, a drug, 3 times the maximum daily dose in order to breathe, because I was an athlete and I wanted to play and, you know, all that stuff. And basically, I went on a food fast, and I ate rice and drank tea for 10 days. And before the 10 days was over, for the first time in my life, I could inhale and feel the air in the bottom of my lungs, which is something we all feel, but we don't notice it because we've always felt it, you know, but just feel air down there, you know. And so I was shocked, like happy and shocked. First of all, I just like, it was so simple for me, and that's not simple for everybody. I mean, children living in, you know, polluted cities and so forth have asthma, and, you know, rice and tea isn't going to do it. And but at the same time, I went to my doctors, and said, guess what? And they said, no, that's just psychosomatic. It worked. But it made me, I was always profoundly skeptical of the medical establishment, and I became more skeptical. But then I had to think, well, what am I going to eat? I'm not going to eat rice and tea, you know.
Yeah, for the rest of your
And so
life.
so I kept adding things to, you know, like a Coca-Cola, apple juice, or a beer, and liquids, and they all had a bad effect. And so I didn't do that. And then different foods. I ate milkshakes and hamburgers, and, you know, I was just a regular American kid. And so my diet got very refined, not in terms of a number of things, but in terms of, and it became a diet of traditional people, you know, in terms of pulse and lentils, obviously, whole grains, you know, lots of vegetables, good oil. I mean, fresh protein, you know, like eggs and things like that. So my diet changed. And what I noticed then, and this was quite a long time ago, is you couldn't go to one store and get everything you needed. And that's when I started Erewhon. That's when I started the natural food business. Because I thought, well, gosh, people don't want to spend all day Saturday going to Lebanon town and to the Quaker Mill and to Chinatown, to Japantown to get just these basic foods, you know. And so, and that brought me close to farmers, because what I was looking for is organic food. And when I started Erewhon, 2 of my vendors were dishonest. They were selling me commercial food and calling it organic. And so I thought, whoa, wait a minute. And I wasn't going to stay in the store business very long. I was going to go do something else. And that just made me mad again. And so I began to find farmers in the United States who were organic farmers, that is. And in most cases, they had been so for years and years and years. They never went to chemical farming. They stayed where they were. And they taught me so much. After 7 years, I had 30 some thousand acres of land under contract. But I walked the land. I would listen to them. I'd stay overnight. I met their family. You know, it was a culture. It was a culture of land, you know. You have it much more, I think, in Europe still.
That's changed, so but still,
well, France has changed the most, I think, you know. But when I lived in France, when I lived in Europe, which is quite a long time ago, I saw that same culture, you know, really. And they taught me how to be aware of place, of water, of land, of birds, of fish, of, you know, soil, of course, you know, and all the varying influences, you know, and things they had to be aware of. And again, every one of those farmers walked the land. In other words, they looked, they saw. Yeah, I could see them, you know, that interrelationship. And that's what's been lost in commercial farming completely.
Well, it's kind of fascinating listening to you, Paul, on that kind of moment of your life where you basically decided to take into your hands your own well, your own feeding system, right? The way you're gonna you're gonna provide you with the right food for your body, and the
Yep.
way it drive you to meet and encounter those organic farmers and many others who are taking care of that food system. So in many ways, it resembles to social entrepreneurs' journeys. I mean, my foundation, we're coaching a bunch of young impact entrepreneurs who are starting with one problem they have in their lives, actually, or something
Mm,
they are actually super worried about, or have, and they want to solve. And some of that exactly is like your story. It's about something that happened
exactly.
to their life, their health, the way they live, the way they get educated or not, etc. And so it's a wonderful story, and we'll get back to that. Now, I'd like to expand that a bit. You talked about some early influence, that you had in the first question. I'd like to go back to some other maybe uh, thinkers or people who've kind of shaped, in a way, your worldview and the way you see the world, and what practices in particular that they had maybe might have impacted you sometimes in your life.
I mean, I've been reading since I was 4 years old, and
Okay.
because I was sick, and my mother would put me in bed, say, "Oh, don't go outside, go in bed," and so I would read, a book a day,
Hmm.
and I still read, of course, and so for me, books was a window into other worlds.
Hmm.
I mean, much better than television, I can tell you that.
Yes. Yes.
Uh, and we didn't even have a TV for a while anyway. So, but so it's hard to. I mean, I was influenced by I mean everything. I read novels, Stendhal, Rouge et Noir. I mean,
Mhm.
there was a different sort of times, I just read, all the books by Hemingway, all the books by
Yeah.
Faulkner, all the
Yeah.
books by James Baldwin. I just read vertically that way,
Hmm.
as opposed to,
Yeah.
and that made, and that was when I was 17. I was in Europe, and at that time, and traveling by myself, and
Hmm.
I would just go to the bookstore in town, the big bookstore that had Penguin books,
Hmm.
and I'd buy these Penguin paperbacks, and I was alone. I was reading and
Yeah.
traveling and looking, going. I went to all the museums. I went to the Prado,
Yeah.
and there's a famous triptych, by Hieronymus Bosch. It's
Hmm.
a famous triptych in the Prado, and I would just go sit there at the floor on the floor and just study it. It was a thing about heaven and hell, and it was so, I think, 14th century,
Hmm.
so prophetic. You look at it now and you say, this person could see the future. You could
Yes.
see modern warfare and so
Yeah.
forth. And the guard was so nice, and he just saw me every day, and I would just sit there and look at it, and that's before tourist pollution,
Hmm.
and so you could go into the Prado, into the
Yes.
Louvre, and
Yeah. Yeah.
and
And
have
you could take the
space.
time and enjoy the space as well. Yes.
Oh
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and
Right.
that's what I did. I went
Yeah.
to museums everywhere,
Hmm.
and I read, and met other students, here and there. But
Yeah.
that had big influence on me, I think,
Hmm.
in terms of aesthetics and the thinking that
Yeah.
informed the art world, if you call it.
Yes.
Of course, money influenced it, during the Renaissance. I mean, and
Yeah.
uh, when you went to Uffizi Gallery in Italy, you're looking at basically money. But what did they, who did they support? Michelangelo, Da
Hmm.
Vinci. I
Hmm.
mean, so extraordinary. And then you would do verticals.
Yeah.
Well, who is this guy? I mean, Leonardo da Vinci.
Yeah.
Okay, he was born right over there. Okay, and then this and this and this, and so rather than going to school and studying,
Yeah.
art, I was in place, in situ, we say, in place,
In place.
there, where they walked,
Living,
where they
learning
came.
through the experiences, basically. Learning through the experiences through
Yeah,
your
and
life.
in
Yeah.
place, in situ,
Yes.
we say in situ,
In
yeah, and
situ.
so forth.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they had a big influence.
Yeah, I mean, adding to that discussion, because I mean, you already shared some, I think, some very unique traits of your personality, your skills as well, Paul. Talking about the way you learn about nature, getting outside, you learn about people, culture, getting out of the world, which is not often the case for many Americans. I would say I love Americans, by the way, but they don't travel often. Young people for a number of for a number of times in different countries. So opening your eyes. I think there's another strength you built, and of course you talk about reading as well, which is very unique. There's strengths I believe strongly into it as well, which is of course all about listening skills. And one of my previous guests that you may know or not, Laurence Toubiana, who was the architect of the Paris Agreement, I had her on a podcast about a year ago, and she really shared a big moment of emotion about what happened just before the agreement was actually announced. And she told us the story that what it took her was to create an incredible listening connection with the smallest nations of the world to get to that agreement at the end of the day in Paris with the largest countries in the world as well. And she did that because she took the time to go and visit those countries one by one across the world and to gain their trust and build some confidence so that the D-Day, really a few minutes before the agreement was going to be actually the agreement was not going to happen, she made it happen through that personal connection. So I'd love to hear about the way you've been learning to listen yourself, and not only of course to the people but also to places, to ecosystems. And because I think that's part of your inner skills to understand the natural world.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, going back to those farmers, like they taught me a lot. I was in Louisiana, and we were buying medium grain rice, from a farmer there. They spoke Arcadian. I don't know if you know Arcadian, but it's
Academically, yes, but not much.
yeah. Well, we would say Jefferson.
Yes.
They would say Jefferson.
Okay.
You go,
Yes.
what are you talking, Jefferson?
Yes.
And so it was fun to meet that culture in Louisiana, that
Yes.
French Canadian culture.
Yes.
They came down from
Yes.
Canada because of the English.
Yes. Yes.
And to just, I think most Americans aren't aware of how many cultures are in America. They don't really have a chance to.
Yes.
Anyway, we were driving along, and then we saw a dead pelican, and I said, "Well, why? This is inland. It's not on the ocean." And said, "Oh, it came for the fish." I said, "Well, why is it dead?" He said, "Well, because the rice farmers coat the seeds in captan, mercury, to protect them from being eaten. And so the fish eat the mercury, the rice, the pelican eats the fish, and the pelican dies."
Yes. Wow.
And that was such a teaching about something that's obvious, for scientists who study pollution and all that sort of stuff. But for me, it was like, oh, okay. If you're not going to source, if you're trying to solve problems downstream, you'll never solve the problem.
Yes.
You have to go upstream. You have to go to cause.
Yes.
And otherwise your cure is not a cure.
Yes.
And I feel like a lot of what's happening today in climate and climate tech and all that sort of stuff is downstream.
Downstream, not upstream.
Yeah, it's not upstream at all. It's not going to cause, it's going to affect. Well, we're going to change the effect. We're going to capture carbon. We're going to suck it in. We're going to liquefy it. We're going to pump it into the earth. We're going to, all those kind of technologies don't go to cause, and cause is, first of all, extraction and consumption.
Yes.
So if you're not addressing extraction and consumption, you're just, we say a gerbil wheel, you're just going in circles,
Yes.
and nothing will change.
Yeah.
And so I do have criticism a lot about the climate movement, because I feel like the narrative is jargon. It's it's like net zero. Really, net zero? Can we talk about that for a minute? What do you mean by net zero? Even the Paris Agreement, with all due respect to the people and the countries, and is they did not define net zero.
Yes.
And people say, well, yeah, net zero is possible. I said, no, it's not possible the way it's impossible. And said, well, what do you mean? Well, how, it's going to be solar and wind and renewable energy, and we'll get rid of all the, fossil fuels. They said, okay, great. So we're making EVs, right? Yeah, we're making EVs. And so you're going to make the steel out of electricity. No one's really figured that one out yet, but let's say you do. Okay, let's say you do. Let's say you do. Green hydrogen hasn't worked, but let's say it works. Okay, for steel, but we will, between now and 2050, double the number of cars. That's a highway around the world 600 times.
Yeah.
600 times around
600
the world.
times. Wow.
Yeah. Okay. That highway is what? It's gravel. It's rock. It's macadam. It's asphalt.
Yeah.
Where's the electricity and renewable energy? You can't build a highway. You can't build a freeway. You can't build it with electricity, or renewable energy. So could we have a conversation about the assumptions, that are not even discussed,
Yes.
about net zero and decarbonization. These are all words that actually most people have no idea what they mean.
No idea. So let's get into the meaty discussion of some of your books and writing, Paul. Obviously, you started some of that conversation, which is wonderful. But I wanted our audience as well to learn more about you, obviously, in the process. In the Next Economy, I think it was in 1983, you warned that prosperity would no longer come from throughput of materials and energy, but from intelligence, design, and restoration. 4 decades later, where do you see the next economy taking root, and where is it still resisted?
Well, I think that next economy did happen in terms of, it was from mass to information. That was the change. And we see that with AI and, robotics, for example, although they have mass. And, what would you call it? I'm not sure what the verb is, but what we are doing to ourselves, to our economy, to how we interact with each other, and as a whole, has become much more oriented towards electrons.
Yes.
And but where that's going is not very helpful, because I feel like really what we need to go to is the living world, because that's what's suffering, and it's suffering from both types of economies, whether it's a mass economy where it's stuff, or whether it's electrons. Both of them are destroying the living world. And there's again this exceptionalism that we have, that somehow if we do more, do it better, do it faster, do it quicker, etc., that we're going to have a better world for everybody. That's just simply not true. And so I would say what we're talking about now is really starting to appreciate what we don't know as opposed to what we do know. And I give examples of it in the new book Carbon, the Book of Life, but I don't think we know. I don't think we know what a human body is. I don't think we know what soil is. I don't think we know what a tree is. And you say, well, yeah, we do. No, we don't.
We don't.
I think, no, it's just the science that's emerging today. It's not me, the expert, saying, look, you don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at the science and going,
the facts.
Oh my goodness,
It's shallow.
Well, actually the new science, the science that's emerging is, there's a new book called The Arrogant Ape by Christine Weber. Read it. It's astonishing, the upsurge of understanding. Like there was, in my book, I mentioned a botanist. Actually, it was about 25 years ago. But anyway, he wanted to know how many roots one single kernel of rye had. You plant it, has roots, has green shoots. So he did. He planted it, and then he put it under electron microscope with his students to count the number of roots. It was 14 million roots.
14 million roots. Wow.
14 million on one. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, what are those roots doing? People think, oh, they're just getting water, and no, they actually have hyphae, and they're connected to mycelia, and the mycelia and the hyphae are communicating. They're actually transacting, and the roots or the plant or the root is giving them,
Yes.
the mycelia, sugar. That's what they want, carbohydrates. That's their fuel. But it's an exchange. I'll give you sugar because I'm making it from photosynthesis.
Yeah.
Every day. The sun. CO2. We have sugar.
Sugar.
Delicious.
Yeah.
The mycelia. The mycelia going, well, we have phosphorus, we have nitrogen.
Yeah.
If you're really picky, we can get some zinc or selenium, calcium. We have that available too. I mean, literally, this communication is happening.
It's an exchange platform, basically.
It's a transaction. Yeah, transactional.
Yeah.
But the thing is, how do they communicate that?
Yes.
And, well, how do they know? How do they listen? They don't listen like audibly, but I mean, how are they registering that information back and forth? And we know now from Adamansky's work at the Royal Society in London that mycelia, these thin, invisible, most cases, filaments, underneath the ground, are actually sending packets of information, just like clicking sounds. If you record it, just like a sperm whale, just like a sun people, just like, and they're in packets and they repeat, and the packets are sequenced. So they repeat like a word, they sequence like a sentence. And he's sort of saying, these are sentences.
This is a language. This is a language, basically.
It's a language,
Yes,
and then, there's scientists who've been around a long time saying, oh, no, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. But that's what you're seeing again in Monica Galliano and Susan Simard and these other scientists, a lot of them women, interestingly. And Christine Weber talks about them in The Arrogant Ape, are coming up with things where the male scientists said wrong, no, and made fun of them and mocked them and so forth. And now we're saying, oh, actually, they were right. They were right because they were seeing the world in a different way. They didn't see it from an old paradigm.
Yeah. So, Paul, we'll definitely come back to particularly your last book, which I enjoyed a lot, to talk about this language actually happening under the trees, under the earth, and all those exchanges actually redefining what carbon is all about, which I think is the core of your book. I want to go back to the Ecology of Commerce, where you argued that capitalism liquidates natural capital and calls it income, basically. John Elkington told, obviously, and basically defined that notion of triple bottom line, which was meant actually to provoke leaders into counting what truly matters. So my question to you is: have we moved towards that vision, or are most companies still stuck in take, make, waste with an ESG kind of gloss over it?
Yeah, take, make, waste is really what companies do.
That's your strong point of view. Yes.
No, it's just metabolism.
This is what they do.
Yeah, I mean, PFAs, polyfluoral alkylins wouldn't be in every cell of your body, wouldn't be every fish in the ocean, wouldn't be in ubiquitous in the world, every farmland, if it wasn't for waste. Okay, so corporations are very willing to create things, but really not think downstream. Okay, and then downstream is, oh, we have a problem, we have pollution. So always seen since the Ecology of Commerce is new forms of pollution. We haven't seen a real reduction in pollution in the world at all. And so that comes from business. And business is driven by profits, the need to grow, the need to return capital and expand the value of capital. And in so doing and so forth, they are not paid to really step back and think, well, wait a minute, is this really good for the cycle of life? Is everything I do, everything I buy, the ingredients, the products, from other companies, is that going to create more life or less life?
Yes.
And the fact is, it creates less life. Maybe downstream, maybe not visible to that company at that time. But look at drugs. Drugs. I mean, even here where I live, the sewer water. And once it goes cleaned up, it's all clean. It goes into the bay. It's full of drugs. And so that's something to think about, because it is basically polluting the fish, the shellfish, I mean,
Yes. Yes.
it's crazy. So, yeah, no, I think that the things have gotten worse since the Ecology of Commerce, really. I don't think people use that word, ecology with commerce.
Yeah.
John Elkington, a dear friend for a long time, does incredible work, educating, writing, meeting with, corporations around the world. But we also talk about it, and I joke with him saying, but are you making progress?
Are you making any progress, John?
He's so credible. He's such a wonderful guy, and he knows a lot. But he doesn't stop doing what he's doing, and I'm glad he doesn't stop. But I would say that unless we step back, because Ecology of Commerce, unless we step back and look at the whole cycle of, where does it come from? Where does the minerals come from? Where does the copper come from? Where does the cobalt come from? Where does the, I mean, if we're not looking at our supply chain from beginning to end means where does it end up eventually, then we are just merchants, but there's no ecology there whatsoever. So the commitments to net zero, I'm talking about the United States right now. I don't know Europe so well, but the United States, there's all these commitments to net zero. Now Trump's elected,
dropped.
No commitments. So were those commitments? They never were commitments. They were just like this, and so, I'm not impressed with commerce in general. There are some amazing companies out there, amazing companies and people. So in that sense, I am.
Yes.
But commerce overall is like, shrug.
Is merchants. So,
yeah.
Paul, together with Amory Lovins, co-founder and chief scientist of the Rocky Mountain Institute, and Hunter Lovins, founder of Natural Capitalism Solutions and a long-term sustainability leader, you wrote Natural Capitalism, a blueprint for the next industrial revolution.
I wrote a piece for Mother Jones called, and then we named it Natural Capitalism. And then Amory and Hunter actually didn't write any of the book. It's just Amory and I wrote it. They were married, and so she put her name on everything that Amory did. So that's, and then she started the Natural Capital thing, but that's really silly because actually it came from myself and Amory. That book had a pretty big impact. I don't think it sold so well. It's like who bought it, and like Bill Clinton would hold it up in meetings of prime ministers and presidents, once in Italy held the book up literally and said, this is the most important book, all that sort of stuff. And basically it was a solutions book, really. It was looking at the metabolism, industrial metabolism, how we make waste, and then actually do it in such a way that actually produced, no waste and a better outcome, cheaper, better, and less or no impact upon the environment, but usually less. And so, I think it's just as relevant today, Jean-Pierre, as it is. If you read it again today, it still works, it's still relevant. A lot of it that was prescribed or talked about still hasn't been really implemented, and it could be, it's so, but but interestingly, the reason I called it natural capitalism was because it was published in Mother Jones, which is a very left-wing magazine, and here, and very good investigative journalist and so forth. And my editor and I were saying, what should we call it? And I said, well, let's call it natural capitalism, because it's about natural capital.
Yes, of course. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It wasn't about capitalism.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so we did. It was the most reprinted article in Mother Jones history. He got fired by the board of directors for that.
Well, okay.
Because they thought it was about, extolling capitalism itself,
yes.
and they didn't read the article and so forth. So
yeah.
Yeah.
So Paul, you've also pointed out what's been neglected, and perhaps that neglect comes from how we frame value itself. In our economy, only counts what can be priced. And how do we avoid reducing nature to commodity while still ensuring it's protected? So, how do you balance again the pragmatic need to value natural capital in economic terms with the truth that nature is priceless?
Exactly. Well, natural capital actually, in most cases, not all, most cases actually replicates. That is, it comes from growth, nature, minerals do not. Minerals are one time, but also the way minerals are used and so forth can be recaptured. They can be reused in a circular way, so I think that natural capitalism was thinking of, okay, what's an economic system that actually doesn't destroy its host?
Yep.
In other words, it doesn't destroy, and that question is even more valid today than it was then. So, so it's a question, really, and so forth. And some companies took it very seriously and implemented it on many, many levels. Usually, companies you may know of them, but they don't brag. They don't tell you what they're doing. They just do it. And IKEA is one of those companies, for example. Very, very interesting company and standards. But I would say that today the pressure on business to grow, to raise its stock market value, its share value, is so overwhelming. And if you don't do it, you don't keep up, then the CEO is replaced by somebody who will try and will do that. And so I think that we've lost our balance. We've lost some sense of I don't know what to say, like we're insane. It's insane what you see right now. I mean, yeah, I mean, where is its value? Is money value? No, it's not. And yet I think people think it is.
Very, very clear point of view, Paul. And I'd like us as well now to explore the energy you spent in kind of shaping, developing as well grassroots movement. I'm thinking about in Bless Unrest, where you documented 1 million grassroots organizations. And your answer brings us to another layer of complexity. Beyond economics, change also depends on people and movements. So, what did you learn about decentralized movements, and how have they evolved with social media and civic fatigue as well across the world?
Yeah, I think actually I'm creating a website now called the Alliance for Earth. And what we hear, see, read almost entirely is about the dominant world, whether it be governments, whether it be business, whether it be entertainment industry. But that's what we hear about, read about. And so what we don't see, we being people who care and are interested or curious, or maybe young people, is that there's another world and on Earth, and it's people in every country actually, in different cultures, who are trying to restore, renew, revive, regenerate life on Earth. for their community, for their children, for their place, for their forests, for everything that they need, treasure, honor, and understand. And there is those organizations we don't see. We don't read about them. The New York Times doesn't talk about them unless somebody gets killed and murdered, or I mean, every so often you read about it, but you really don't know what's going on out there. So the Alliance is a website that will create itself, and basically it is it is what you can do on that is find out who's doing what where in the earth. That you don't hear about, you don't know, and it's in 105 languages.
Wow.
Okay. So, for example, you have a website, and you wouldn't have a website if you didn't want to share information on your website. So there's information, you want to get it out to the world. So that organization inside the Alliance and so forth, you can say, okay, reforestation in Botswana.
Yep.
I want to know
Here you
about it.
go.
Why?
Yep.
I don't know why, but you do.
Yep.
And then you find out, and there is a website, and maybe it's in English, maybe not, maybe it's in other languages and so forth. But whatever it is, you can go, it will scrape the website and say, there's the information. You can read it in its native language, or you can change it into your language that you understand. And then school teachers, business people, of course, but students, scientists and so forth can basically find out what's going on out there, who knows what, where, and what are they doing, and what have they learned, and what do they want to share. We don't get that from our media. We don't get it from the Guardian. We don't get it from FT or the Telegraph or Le Monde, or I mean, we don't get it. And it's small. It's small. It's like, it's there, but it's too small.
I think it's a great issue. We'll make sure actually we share the website link on the notes of the podcast, Paul. Would you have a story out of all that global innovation happening that really you like to share with the audience on what's going on reforestation or something else in the world that inspired you?
Well, Spencer Beebe at EcoTrust in Portland really inspired me.
What do they do?
Well, they actually restored a whole ecosystem along they're in Washington, they're in Oregon, along the coast there, of fisher people who basically were destroying the fishery in so many words, but also not getting paid very much for it, and so forth. And so working with them as a community, and looking at the forests and what's going on upstream, because what's upstream is causing problems downstream in the ocean to the fisheries and so forth. So working with it as a complex ecosystem, and connecting people, because really what we're talking about is a massive disconnection in the world. We're disconnected from what we do, what happens when we buy something that we don't know, and so forth. And the way you heal a system is to connect more of it to itself. It'll heal itself.
Yes.
And so that's really the motto of this new website, but it's also the motto of my work, which is, rather than blame people, which is easy, to point your finger and say, always easy to think. But really, the answer lies in connection. In other words, how do you reconnect? How do you cross boundaries? Because oftentimes people are separated by beliefs or politics or religion and so forth. Okay. But when it comes to life, children, and welfare and well-being and so forth, that is a meeting point for people. That's the connecting point. And that's what Spencer did in EcoTrust, for years and years, and he created a thing called Salmon Nation, which is really, he mapped the whole salmon world from, I guess it's Japan or Korea, I don't know. But anyway, all the way across,
Asia,
Russia, Kamchatka, Alaska, all the way down to California. And it created a map of every tributary, every waterway. It's the Salmon Nation, and then using that as a totemic way to understand where do you live and how do you interact with you live, and
Yes.
and do you really want to use that shampoo? I don't think so, because that's going into the
This is the
water.
way.
Yeah. So just
I mean, this is one of many, I'm sure, great example we found out on the website. But in a way, reflecting on some of the solution you've been evangelizing yourself in some books in the past, particularly on Drawdown, but I think there's many others that you've done, obviously. Which solutions that you've seen work in the world, did not actually got deployed broadly, and you think this is a big miss for the world today? Would you be would you call out three of them maybe that you believe could be restorative for the world in the way we could embrace it as humanity?
golly, I'm going through the list.
No, good long list. The big ones, you think? I mean, the one that could have a more of a systemic impact, right, across the world.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, is everything from AC to
I'm sure you have many
I mean,
favorites.
oh yeah, because there's regeneration as well. That has another 100.
They could be also very symbolic, Paul. By the way, they could be symbolic in a way by
I would
essence. Yeah, yeah,
say the one where there's a lot of progress and a lot of
yeah.
hindrance, both. In other words,
Mm.
progress is educating girls.
Educating girls. Can
Yeah.
you tell us more about that?
Sure, because Afghanistan would be the quintessential example
Mm.
of suppressing women,
Mm.
but women are girls, and then women are suppressed, in terms of their opportunity, their
Mm.
education, uh, uh, all over the world, but particularly in Islamic countries,
Yeah.
and that's just stupid.
Mm.
It's like that's superstition. That's based on a belief system that didn't even come from Muhammad. I mean, it's just like these things are stuck into cultures, that are belief systems. And so, I'm writing a new book called Upstream, and I'm talking
Yep.
about the 10 things that are most
Mm.
that we have to focus on.
Okay.
Obviously energy, obviously food, obviously, but one of them we have to focus on is man. Man is the biggest problem on
Man.
earth right now. Man, males, man.
Males. Ah.
Yeah, yeah. Look at them. Who's running it? Who are the bankers? Who are the so-called leaders? Who runs the armies? Who's in the army? It's like just keep going down the list. It's man. It's this craziness that's infected the world on the masculine side.
Hmm.
And so the integration of women on all levels, starting with their education and so forth, is crucial if we're going to restore life on Earth. Not going to do it. The men aren't going to do it. And we have to understand that this is a threshold time. Look at the authors that people love, like Robin Wall Kimmerer, and
Yep.
they're not. I mean, I'm not saying there isn't great men out
Yep.
there
Yep.
doing wonderful things. Of course there are. Of course. But I'm just saying is that there's a bias almost everywhere in the world, not quite,
Yep.
against women and pro men, and it's locked in. And so I would say that was the one
Okay.
where there's
Educating
most,
girls. Yep. Yep. Yep.
educating girls.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, let's shift a little bit and back to regeneration. Regeneration frames climate action as irresistible and joyful, equity first. Actually, one of my previous guests, Barbara Fredrickson, who is a positive psychologist that you may know, Paul, spoke about the power of joy to expand our capacity to act. So, how do you design regenerative actions so they are not only irresistible, not just dutiful, but joyful as well?
Maybe you work backwards,
Hmm.
and start with joy.
To start with
And
joy. Yes.
start with awe. Start with like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
uh, how does this work? And look where I am, and
Yeah.
listen to that sound. And why are there so many birds here? Or why are there no birds here too? But so I think it starts with a understanding or experience of the living world,
Yeah.
that produces a sense of wonder, a sense of awe, a sense of respect. Of course,
Yeah.
it can also reminds you of a sense of loss. Well, it used to be this way and now it's not. All those things are the starting point, because then you want to work backwards from there and say, okay, well, how did it get this way? Why is it so beautiful and wonderful and thriving here, and why is it over here the same, say, ecosystem maybe, but it's like you don't hear anything. There's no deer, there's no animals there. There's very few, and the trees don't do well and all that sort of stuff, and the water, you can't drink it. I mean, so to really do that, ending up with joyful, you want to start with joyful.
Story. I love it. I love it as a starting point for sure. And it ties well into positive leadership philosophy. Continuing on that, actually, designing such regenerative action touches on culture, on psychology, and inspiration as well. But leaders also need some very tangible ways to know if they are on the right path. So today, Paul, if you're advising a CEO, you might not do that. You talk about John's doing it, indeed, or a mayor of a big city in the US, right? There's many big cities in the US with different types of challenges. What would be the 5 metrics, if you have to pick 5 things, that you'd put on their regeneration dashboard to track progress and accountability week by week? What would that be?
Well, every business is different, and most businesses are complex. Their supply chain, what they do, what they make, what they, So, by the way, I do consult. I consult to the CEOs of the 2 biggest food companies in the world about regeneration and ag and soil and water and heat. And so I do consult. I don't fly around the world as much as John, but I love what he does. I think that there's not 5, there's 1. It's only
Just
1.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is it?
And that is that either you're degenerating or regenerating life. It's not, there's no middle ground.
It's
Well, I'm
binary.
thinking
Okay.
it's totally binary. And so I'm thinking about it. I'll get back to you. No, you have to look at what you do. Almost every company is going to look at what they buy, what they do, how they do what they do, how they make what they make, how they sell, how they distribute, how they serve, as degenerative. Okay, that's just true. Okay, so
where do you start, Paul? Because
they know where to start, because they have to. They if they don't even know what their supply chain's doing, what their company's doing, then there's no place to start whatsoever. And so that's the teachable moment. That's like, oh wow, okay, this is doing that. I bet most CEOs don't even know it. They have no idea what their product or their service is doing to the living world, to people, to and a good example would be offsets. Carbon offsets. Carbon offsets have done more damage than I can think of anything. I mean, they're just BS. I mean, somebody wants to emit a ton of carbon, and then they're going to buy an offset, and it's like a gerbil wheel, which is thank you, but you did nothing except make somebody. You put money in somebody's pocket. I mean, this is just another extractive industry, the offset world, right? And so corporations have used that as a way to say, oh well, we're this forest or this land or this regeneration. No, it's not. It has nothing to do with regeneration. So it takes honesty, and really clarity in terms of looking at one's footprint, as they say. Yeah, and then you can decide, okay, now what do we do? How can we change what we do?
Yes, I got you. I mean, it's obviously a very profound point, and opening a lot more discussion on ESG and all that stuff. But let's stop there 1 second. I'd like to go back to what you said early on in our conversation, Paul, when I was talking about the facts and the data which matter. You said, well, but you need to balance that, Jean-Philippe, with storytelling as well. And I think you've argued that reframing carbon from villain to life threat is essential. So to me, that sounds like storytelling is critical. So how do you reframe and reframe open unexpected coalitions like linking soil, oceans, and industry together? How do you do that?
Well, with food, what I'm linking now is heat, soil, and water.
Yeah.
because I think people see them as distinct problems, issues. For sure, they're right. Yeah, they're right. But what they don't understand is that if you're going to deal with the water for me means the availability of clean water. Second, it means the water that's in the air. And there's 10% more water in the air than there was 50 years ago because of heating.
Yes.
And that water tends to concentrate more in the atmosphere. And you get flash floods and terrible downpours.
Yes.
In between the concentration, you get droughts, you get sunshine, you get no water at all. So it's not evenly distributed in the atmosphere. Okay. So the water cycle is getting more exaggerated. It's always a water cycle, always drought, always rain, of course, but now it's getting much more sharp. Okay. But the way you cure, if you will, treat, the way you change that is to change how you treat soil. Because that's the reservoir for water. Yeah, there's lakes and there's rivers and runoff and glaciers and so forth that are melting. But I mean, most of the water is in the soil. And so heating is drawing the water out of the soil. When you change how you treat the soil, that is regenerative agriculture, is feed the soil, the microbiome of the soil, protect the soil, don't let it be exposed to the sun, have cover crops, when you know how to do this, and farmers know how to do this, we know, so forth, it actually becomes a reservoir. It rains like crazy. The soil soaks it up. Does it release it slowly to the plants? And yes, it does, and so forth. But if you don't do that, then when the heavy rains come, it takes the soil with it and goes downstream. Right. So that's why I call it upstream. You got to go upstream. And they're going to look at it that way. And then, so you have soil and water. And then the fact is, Jean-Philippe, the climate model, every climatologist agrees. So I'm not saying something controversial. Broke. The model broke.
Yes.
It's broken. In other words, they cannot explain what happened in the last 18 months. They have a good idea now. They didn't then. About, it's called the cold knife or this thing in the Pacific, what happened, something so anomalous in terms of heat, cold, water, currents. It's changed the weather for the whole world. And unpredicted, they don't know what caused it and so forth. So what I'm saying to executives, who are in the food business, we don't know, because with, that came out of the Paris Agreement and so forth, there was good science and it got better and better as to what is going to be the rate of warming and then what to do about that and so forth by 2050. Now we don't know the rate of warming. So it becomes more imperative for them to think about this as a system, as opposed to, well, I grow coffee, I do this, I grow soybeans, I pay farmers, blah, blah, blah. Okay, fine. But if you depend on food, and food companies do, for your business, then you have to start thinking about heat, soil, and water and those relationships. And then,
Got you. No, absolutely. Paul, there was actually a recent debate, at least in Le Monde. You talked about Le Monde before. It's a French newspaper for our audience who don't live in France. They reported disagreements among scientists about biodiversity loss. Some, especially geologists, argue that by strict definition, we are not yet in what is called the sixth mass extinction, right? Since the threshold of 75% of species lost has not been reached. Others, ecologists and conservation biologists, warn that this framing is misleading, as extinction rates are already dozens or even hundreds of times above natural background levels, and denial risks fueling complacency. How should we and leaders communicate biodiversity risk in a way that is precise yet mobilizing for the world? What is your view
first of all,
on that biodiversity risk and loss and the reality that you see?
Why should 75% be an acceptable number?
Not sure. Agree. That's a first denial.
That's insanity. Insanity. Why isn't 100% restoration the goal? Rather than looking for a threshold that says, okay, now we're in a mass extinction, but before that we weren't. I mean, that's just that's just, excuse me, I'll talk about men scientists, like with data, thinking that somehow they can understand the world with data, better data, and then analyze the data and argue about the data. That's just stupid.
Yeah.
Because if you go around the world, if you actually talk to farmers, you talk to fisher people, you go visit to places that are untouched, I put that in quote marks, by human beings. And if you have been there 10, 20, 30, 40 years and you go back, it's completely different. Everything has changed.
Yes.
And so even the deforestation in the Amazon is changing the remaining forests.
Yes.
Their primary forests, they're changing because the buffer zones are being logged, to grow soybean, to make cows, to make hamburgers for people, and so, and but pollinators are a good example. We don't know what's happened with pollinators. We know somewhere 60, maybe 70, we're not sure, have been reduced, the number of pollinators in the world. Okay. And the different scientists have different measures because they're different environments, different pollinators. So you can't say there's one measurement. There's not one. Okay. But what we do know, and this is Edward E.O. Wilson, the most famous entomologist in history and a wonderful guy at Harvard, says, it talked about it. He said, you get to 3-4%, and then the Earth returns to what it was like 1 billion years ago. There's no fish. There's no fish.
Yeah.
You think, well, pollinators, fish? No, there's no fish.
No fish.
No, the system collapses. And how often, Jean-Philippe, how often do you read about pollinators? And so to have an argument about 75% and we're not mass extinction, who cares?
Yes.
About men using words. What we care about is, are we losing the environment? Yep.
Yeah.
Do we want to? Nope.
Yeah. Okay, as we enter the last stage of our conversation, Paul, I love to turn into positive waters, if I can, positive leadership, which is the theme of the podcast, while being realistic about the world, obviously. Many feel natural tipping points, but your work points to the possibility of positive tipping points too, that cascades towards life. So where can we most quickly trigger regenerative tipping points in the real economy today? What would be the 2 or 3 interventions if you were, the superpower of this world, to decide tomorrow morning to go back to where we came from?
Well, we'll never go back. Okay, that's not possible. We have changed the Earth so remarkably. One of the things that is not well understood is that we think, 10,000 or 20,000 or 25,000 years ago, it was like the primal Earth, primeval and so forth. It was not. The Earth was radically changed over 200,000 years by Homo sapiens sapiens. So, and we're just beginning to realize, that the Earth has always been modified by other beings, but particularly human beings, as long as human beings have been here. So that anyway, but what we do know is that those practices created abundance because that's what. If you're living in one place, what do you want? You want abundance. You want to feed your children. You want to feed your family. You want to eat. And so I would say that you say the 3 areas. I would say one is place. In other words, to really understand place and people is like, what place is this, and who understands it, who knows it, and what do we get from this place? What have we done to this place? What can we do to restore this place? Who do we talk to? Who do we listen to? Oftentimes in North America, it's to listen to indigenous people. That's true in South America. That's true in Africa, and to a much lesser extent in Europe. Very much, because they have stories, okay?
Yes.
And I give an example, maybe this is too long, but I don't know, of the Mi'kmaq in Eastern Canada. And in the fall, October, okay, and the full moon, they would go to a mother tree, that is a major pine tree and so forth,
Yeah.
and then they would listen to the sound of the tree was making in the wind. Okay, not the sound of the wind, the sound the tree was making in response to the wind. And they would name that tree. They would name it, give it a name that only that tree had.
For that sound and that tree.
And that sound in that tree.
Yeah.
They could go back 10 years later, look at no written language, right? They all remembered the name.
Yes.
They could go listen again, and they could tell whether the tree was thriving or diminishing. Okay, so that's what I mean. So you have to be in place, and live there in order to understand how to relate to it in a way that is regenerative, right?
Yeah. I love the story actually in your book, and I recommend highly your book to our listeners. I mean, you're talking about all those indigenous cultures that are disappearing, unfortunately, across the world, and the incredible diversity, breadths of the language, of the semantics of the words, capturing nature. And the example you gave of that of that community in East Canada, could be replicated in many other places in the world, in Africa, in Europe, in South America, with some amazing variety of languages that are getting lost for the world. Which means, and those languages were expressing the pure, direct inner relationship of people, of humans, with nature. And that's what we're losing. And I think that your book is a wonderful reminder of that reality that we have all lost, given a few words we are using in our daily life now, the kind of words we are using.
Yeah, you can be the best scientist from Cornell or Yale or something, and you go down, to Patagonia or someplace, you'll never know in your lifetime probably what the people who've lived there for thousands of years know, And the thing about it is that there's very few indigenous languages that have been really completely translated. I do have a dictionary of one of them, the Yamana people down in Tierra del Fuego, and it's a fascinating dictionary, a lexicon, because if you look at it, it teaches you how to live there. The language is full of metaphors and so forth, but when you read it, you go, oh, when you learn the language, you're learning your place, and you're learning how to relate to your place, and our language doesn't do that. Our language is as if the place didn't exist,
Yes.
I can only speak for English, but
it has become too universal, actually, for human beings.
Right.
Yes.
Exactly.
And so,
right.
Yeah. So now I love to end with a couple of questions about what we are discussing in the podcast, Paul, positive leadership. So I'd like to bring your own journey into this broader dialogue I'm having with many guests on the podcast. So when you hear the phrase positive leadership, what does it mean to you? How you describe your own way of leading as an entrepreneur, as a writer, as a movement builder, whatever, as a multiple lives of Paul has. What kind of positive leader are you, Paul?
I don't know if I am, but when I see one, or I think one, is the first thing you look for is character. In other words,
what kind of character are you talking about?
Yeah, their being, their integrity,
yes,
their presence,
yes,
their compassion, their leadership, obviously, and those qualities. That's what I look for in positive leadership, because it's not about things and doing.
yes.
First of all, it's about being. And do you not command, but I mean, do you deserve respect? And will people listen to you when you speak?
Yes.
Are you careful about what you say? Are you humble about what you know and don't know? Are you? There was a conductor, Ben Zander. He's still alive, so I don't say was, but anyway, I was at a thing with Interface, the company of Ray Anderson, famous, and I think we had 80, 90 people there. They're interestingly all men in hindsight, but so be it. But Ben is a conductor and a really great teacher on leadership. And he stopped right in the middle of it, and he said, "Is it anybody's birthday today?" And one person raised their hand, and he said, "Well, come up here, sit down, and what's your name?" He said, "Oh, my name, is John." "Okay, John, let's all sing happy birthday for John." And everybody's going, "Okay." And then Ben says, "Okay," and then it starts up, happy birthday. I mean, it's one of the worst songs you've ever heard sung, in America. I don't know about France. Happy birthday to you. It's out of tune. It's, it's like a dirge, it's not like a funeral. And anyway, everybody finishes, and Ben says, "Do you think he's going to remember this?" And he said, "I don't think so, And he said, "Let's try again." So then everybody stood up. He said, "Stand up." Then he hummed, C or whatever, I forget, A, whatever it was, da, okay, da, da, then now, and he conducted it.
Yeah.
Jean-Philippe. I had tears in my eyes. That same group of men who had never sung together before went into 4-part harmony.
Wow.
It was so beautiful. Even people in the hotel were looking down the hallway and said, "What's going on down there?" and so forth,
Wow.
Anyway, it was so beautiful. What was the difference? And so I asked Ben then, I said, when you're conducting, you're a conductor, what are you doing? And he said, "I'm listening to all the voices." And so that's leadership, is listening to all the voices.
Love it. That's a beautiful line for leaders and positive leaders in particular. Now, if I was asking a follow-up question, which leadership traits in particular do you believe are the most crucial for actually listening all those voices in the nature, and so that we can start regenerating our societies and our planet?
Well, you can be a leader and have a lot of opinions and beliefs and so forth. But the only way people are going to respond and take it in is because of your character, who you are, not because you're smart or, intellectual, or you know more than they do, or the way, that's the only thing that's going to make a difference, is who you've become, in your life, and that's due to your parents, your teachers, and, who knows what else. But so that's positive leadership, but it's not something you can add on.
No.
Like frosting on a cake. Oh, let's get some frosting. No, it comes from inside, and it's informed by the world you live in and what's happening, and having that, intelligence and awareness, of course, but just having that awareness itself is not necessarily going to lead to a kind of leadership that changes people, that changes events, changes the world. I don't think so. Yeah.
Love it. So my very last question, I promise, Paul. You once told graduates in a celebrated 2009 commencement address at the University of Portland, "You are brilliant and the earth is hiring." So what final message of hope and responsibility would you leave our listeners, especially young leaders who want to serve life in this generation?
I try not to give advice, really. I know you're asking me to do that, Jean-Philippe. I try to listen. So if I'm with a group of young people, I'm more likely to ask questions and to listen. And then if they ask questions, I will respond. But I try to get out of that situation where I know they don't. I don't think that's true. I've been around longer, so that's true. But I try to level that out so that we are on the same plane of consciousness and awareness and respect. And then wisdom can come from anybody in that situation, the women and the men, the girls and boys, whatever. And so to take to sublimate my situation, because I look at that is a commencement speech. I think there is, I don't know, 8,000 people, and that commencement speech just has gone, viral. But I feel like when I'm with a group of people, I try to embody characteristics that I think I want to see in others, myself.
Yeah. No, I love that final line of listening, Paul, and the way you've been talking about listening all those voices, starting with all those languages under the trees, but also somewhere on the coast as well, in the forest. And I want to thank you really warmly for this very inspiring conversation we had, and for a lifetime of service to life. To our listeners, the Earth, I believe, is indeed hiring. So I'm actually an optimist. And each of us has a role to play. So let's go and do the next right thing, obviously, together joyfully. And if you enjoyed the episode, of course, please share it and leave a positive review on your favorite podcast platform. And you can now check out my new website, jpcourtois.com. And I'd love to hear your feedback. And don't forget, next episode of Positive Leadership is coming in 2 weeks. Looking forward to it. And in the meantime, Paul, again, thanks so much for inspiring us and reconnecting us to nature, to where we are and we come from. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And thank you for what you're doing. I really, really respect and appreciate that.
Thanks, Paul.